Well, at least one top official in the Trump administration is not terribly happy about the tariffs. His top economic advisor has now resigned, and many people speculated that he would if Donald Trump followed through with his campaign promise to impose tariffs on steel and aluminum. He's done so, and Cohn is now out. John Eastman, he is the former dean of Chapman University School of Law, still teaches there, now joins us. Professor, thank you so much for taking the time, as always. By the way, Professor Eastman, clerk for Justice Clarence Thomas, he has a Ph.D. and a master's in government. He also concentrated in political philosophy, American government, con law, international relations, has a B.A. in politics and economics. That's one of the reasons why we talk to him about so many different things. He also has run for office, so he's talked the talk and actually has walked the walk. Again, Professor, thank you so much for taking the time.
Larry, I love doing your show, particularly the introductions. Thank you. That was very kind.
Now you have to live up to it. Professor, what is going on? Had you heard of Sam Nunberg 2 days ago?
No, I hadn't, but there are a lot of people that are involved in campaigns that you don't hear about, so not a surprise.
Fired twice, wasn't even around during the pivotal meeting with Jared Kushner and the Russian national, and he's made the rounds of all these talk shows as if he's Deep Throat. They were looking for Deep Throat. I said a moment ago, John Eastman, they got Foster Brooks.
Yeah, maybe. We've got competing views on what his state of affairs were when he showed up to these various interviews. But I don't want there's a very substantive issue here, and I think the main thing that the news media is missing, they're all jumping over him, saying, "Oh, well, I'm not going to comply with this subpoena." But there's a Fourth Amendment. It's supposed to protect us in our persons and our papers and effects, unless there's, without reasonable cause. Now, prosecutors, when they're issuing grand jury subpoenas, this is not the jury or a court siding off on these things. They issue the subpoenas themselves. So many times there's no check on a probable cause check by a court on those subpoenas. And so if they're patently unreasonable on their face, as he seems to be claiming they are, there's a real problem with the subpoena, not with his refusal to comply with it. Mm-hmm. And the second, even if it's a valid subpoena, he always retains the right to go in and ask the court, which supervises the grand jury, to quash the subpoena because it's effectively operating like a general warrant. You don't have anything on me. You're not going to just, rummage through my entire life's history and my entire email records, all my papers and effects, to use the language of the Fourth Amendment, right, to try and find something. And that's why we have the ability to bring motions to quash subpoenas. Or even if it's just you're asking for 4 years' worth of emails that I have to go through. That's just unreasonable unless you can narrow it down a little bit. So I'll ask get a court to quash it because it's unreasonably burdensome.
Dr. John Eastman, that's the law. Let's talk about the politics. Who is this guy? Somebody who wasn't even around when they had this major meeting with the Russian national. He got fired twice by the Trump people. Apparently a protege of Roger Stone, who also is gone. I'm trying to figure out where the collusion nexus is.
Well, I don't think there is. What they're trying to find is if there's anything mentioned in emails, and they don't know. But his cache of emails might have something telling Roger Stone. And by the way, remember that meeting with Jared Kushner. What set it up, what enticed him to take the meeting, was to claim by this Russian, and it turned out to be false. It was a setup, but this claim by the Russian that they had evidence. It was not evidence to try and collude with the Trump campaign. They had evidence that the Russians were already colluding with the Hillary campaign by funneling money to them. That was the temptation morsel that was offered to Jared Kushner. We forget about that.
John Eastman, we only have 45 seconds left. It's a really short interview, but I want to ask you about this Australian diplomat whose tip prompted the Russian probe in the first place. Turns out he's got ties to the Clinton Foundation, and those ties were not revealed to Congress until just now?
Well, yeah, that's right. He apparently was the one that was instrumental in funneling $25 million to the Clinton Foundation from the Australian government. And then he's the guy that meets with George Papadopoulos in London at a bar, and this is the corroborating evidence for
this is insane, John Eastman. This is insane.
Yeah, it is insane. And, quite frankly, the sooner that Mueller does what he ought to have done 6 months ago and shuts this investigation down, because it is now becoming a general warrant witch hunt, which is contrary to every constitutional principle we have.
Dr. John Eastman, Chapman University. Dr. Eastman, thank you so much as always.
Thank you. Take care.
Appreciate it.
Larry will be right